You made it all so good. With a promise, did what you said you would. Oh, I wonder why you're so good to me.
Hey everybody, it's Miss Jerry Lynn. I hope you're all doing good today. Our lesson today is going to be about prayer, and it's such an important thing to learn about. Let's get straight to our lesson. It's called the Lord's Prayer. It's from Matthew chapter 6, verses 5 through 15. Remember Jesus is grown up now. Jesus was teaching a large crowd on the mountainside. He said, "When you pray to God, pray like this. God in heaven, your name is holy. Let what happens in your kingdom happen on earth. Give us everything we need. Forgive us. Help us forgive others. Help us make good choices instead of bad ones." Jesus was teaching the crowd how they could pray and words they could use to pray. And all people can use these words, including you and me. Praying is so important because it's our chance to get to talk to God. God, we know, we learn, is all around us and in our heart. We can't see God, but we can talk to God. And prayer is the way that we talk to God. And we don't have to have a special way. We don't have to have special words. So you don't have to be afraid to talk to God in prayer. You use the words that you know. But Jesus was saying you can use some of these words to say some certain things to God. You can tell God that you love Him, that you love God. You say, "God in heaven, your name is holy. I love you so much that I even love your name." That what happens in your kingdom, we want it to happen here on earth. We talked about God's kingdom and how we wanted to have peace in the kingdom here on earth. Then the next line says, "Give us everything we need." Sometimes you hear us say, "Give us, Lord, our daily bread." That means give us what we need for each day, not just the food we need, but what the other things we need in life too. Forgive us and help us forgive others. Sometimes we do things and we need to ask for forgiveness. We can ask God or confess and tell God the things that we've done that weren't nice. And then we can talk to God and ask God to help us make good choices and realize when things may not be a good choice. Prayer is our chance to talk to God and thank God and tell God our trouble if we're afraid or if we're happy, if we're excited, if we're thankful. All those times God wants to share with us. And when we talk to God, that's called prayer. And you can do that anytime. Sometimes we do it at night. You can do it in the morning. You can do it in the car. You can do it anytime you want to, with your eyes open or your eyes closed, with your hands folded, or you don't have to have your hands folded. When you need to talk to God, God is there for you. You can use the words that you need to. And if you don't have the words, you just close your eyes and you just hope in your heart, and God is there. God will always be listening to your prayers. So there is the prayer. It's called the Lord's Prayer. It's in the Bible. And as you get older, you will learn the Lord's Prayer. You'll memorize it and have it up in your mind. Some of you may already know it. And then we say the Lord's Prayer in the worship service, and then you can say it with the grown-ups, and you'll always remember it, and you'll always have a prayer on your heart that you can say to God, that Jesus asked us to say. So it's very important. And remember, prayer is for you and God to talk. I love you guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Hi friends! So, I miss you guys so much. I haven't seen you in forever. It's Miss Jacqueline, by the way. Hey! So, this week in our Sunday school lesson, we're talking about the Lord's Prayer. So, I know when I am feeling sad or alone, or even if I'm just thankful and I just want to pray to God, sometimes I say the Lord's Prayer. So, this week, what you're going to be doing is an activity where you're going to create prayer hands. So what you're going to do is you're going to color them first, then you're going to cut them out, and then you're going to glue them together, and it makes this nice little 3D prayer hand that you can put somewhere in your room to remind you that God's always with you and He always hears you. So you can always say the Lord's Prayer if you want to be closer to Him. And then also you're going to have the fun little word search that has some words to help us think about what does the Lord's Prayer really mean and how does it connect us closer to God. So I hope you guys all have a wonderful week, and I really, really miss you. And mwah, bye!
Hi everybody, it's Miss Justine, and today we are talking about prayer. In our Bible story, we learn how Jesus taught his followers to pray what we now call the Lord's Prayer. And I'm sure you know the Lord's Prayer. We say it every week at church. And that just shows a basic way of how to pray, which is speaking to God. And people pray in many different ways. You know, some people pray silently in their heads. Sometimes we hold hands and we all pray together. And some people pray out loud, but in a private place. So there's no right or wrong way to pray. God is waiting to hear from you anytime through prayer. And so a prayer box that we're going to make today is simply a container where you can pray by writing a note to God. You can think of it as a mailbox, especially for God. And sometimes when you're worried, people say worry is a prayer for something that you don't want to happen. So instead, you can write down your concerns and your fears and what you're sad about. You can write it down and you can put it in your prayer box. And then you can say, I'm letting go of the problem and letting God take control of it. And so when you find yourself worrying again, you can say, God's got this. God is taking care of the problem. I don't need to think about it anymore. And sometimes, if you're happy about something, some people think that if you say, oh, I'm so happy about this, that you're jinxing yourself. And then you might lose it. But see, God doesn't work that way. God wants to hear your gratitude about how thankful you are to God for whatever good things are happening in your life. So you can be generous in showing God your gratitude and write a prayer of gratitude for your prayer box. And think of that as a thank you note for God. So you see, a prayer box can help us pray to God. It's a different way of talking to God when you write it down and you put it in the box for God. And so here's my prayer box that I painted. I painted it on the inside as well as the outside, but you don't have to do that. See, I wrote on the top, it says prayer changes things, which it does. Prayer always changes things. But so you have your own prayer box. You can decorate it any way you want. You can use markers, stickers, paint, whatever. But just think of it as a mailbox that you can leave notes for God. And until next time, I hope everyone has a great week.
Hey guys, it's Mr. Tony, and I'm here at the church. I hope that you had a wonderful week. It's time to make a little bit of music for your Sunday school, so let's get started. We've been talking for months about rhythms and different ways to read those rhythms. We call those notes, and notes can be placed on staff to show pitch and whether notes go higher or lower. We've talked about how long certain notes last, whether you have a whole note. We talked about that last week, and it lasts for 4 beats, a half note that lasts for 2 beats, a quarter note that lasts for 1 beat, or an eighth note that lasts for 1/2 of a beat. And when we make combinations of these different types of notes, we come up with what we call rhythm. And we've been working on different ways to do that. So I'm just going to review some of that. We're going to try to play some of our rhythms along with our Cokesbury theme song for Celebrate Wonder. And then we're going to talk about some more instruments, because we've been talking about that for the past few weeks since the beginning of 2021. And I've enjoyed teaching you guys about the piano, about different percussion instruments. So today we get to talk about brass instruments, or at least get started talking about some brass instruments. So I think that's super cool. So we'll get to that in just a moment, but let's get started with some rhythms. So last week, we talked about whole notes. So remember, whole notes are 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. So anytime you clap a half note or play a half note, it will last for 4 beats. So you feel the beats going on. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what we call our whole note. It lasts for 4 beats. Whenever we don't do that, we have a whole rest, and we rest for 4 beats. So in the same spirit of that, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're not clapping at all. Remember that a half note, and I can't find my half rest or half note sheet, but it does look like this. You can see the note that is not circled in. Remember, that's for 2 beats. So here's my beat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That's our half note. And then we have the opposite of a half note, and that's called a half rest. Looks just like a whole rest, except the half rest faces up, where the whole rest faces down. Kind of looks like a top hat, doesn't it? So the same way, when we do a half rest, it lasts for 2 beats. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and we rest for 2 beats. So when we combine different rhythms for that, for example, with this one, there's a quarter note, a half rest, and another quarter note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. And I showed you guys this a minute ago, but this is our rhythm with our whole rest. So for example, we have a whole note, a half note, and a quarter note, a half note, and a quarter note. Same as we did just a minute ago, except this time we actually play it, or we'll clap our hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we rest for 1, 2, 3, 4 counts with that one. If you guys remember, 1/8 notes, these are quarter notes divided in half. So if you have your quarter note, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. In this case, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it goes a lot faster and quicker. There's all kinds of cool ways we can do that. But before we get into rhythm games, we need to review our quarter notes and our quarter rests. Remember that a quarter note is just like this, where the note is shaded in, and the quarter rest looks like this. It's just a squiggly line. So if I were to play this rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. There are lots of different ways we can do it. Here, for example, is 4 quarter rests. 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't need to play or clap or do anything during a rest because we are what? We are resting. Good. All right, guys. I'm going to play our Celebrate Wonder theme song, and I hope you guys can hear it. And then from this point, we're going to make some rhythm. And so I encourage you to find some kind of instrument you can play with. That can be your hands. It can be body percussion. We can clap. We can slap our knees. We can stomp our feet. However we want to make some sound. I am going to use a combination of a couple things. Remember, we've talked about this a few weeks ago. This is a tambourine. And it's a great way that I can play rhythms that last longer, like a whole note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But I can also do shorter notes too. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and for our 8th notes. And I'm also going to use rhythm sticks, so we can clap along with these too. All right, here's our theme song. I'm going to give us some rhythms, and I want you guys to clap, slap, or find an instrument to play along with. Let's start with quarter notes. Good. Let's do half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. That's a half note. Good job. Now let's do quarter rest. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because the rest, we actually rest, right? We don't move along with that. Let's try this rhythm. We did this a minute ago. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good job. Now, my favorite, 8 notes. All of these little notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then let's go to whole notes. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All kinds of different things you can do. Now I want you guys to do a moment of freestyle. Come up with any rhythm you can, and I'm going to play this a little bit louder, and you can come up with your own rhythms. Make any rhythm you want. Quarter notes, half notes, quarter rests, whatever you feel like. And I know you guys are going to do a great job with this. Great job, guys. I love doing rhythm things because they are the backbone of making any type of music, and we always can use some way to make rhythms. So before we go today, we're going to start an introduction on what we call brass instruments. And I did a little bit of this in the fall, but I'm going to introduce a new instrument to you. So in the fall, I talked about the trombone. And remember, the trombone is a brass instrument. It has something called a mouthpiece on it. With this mouthpiece, I buzz into it. And when I buzz into the mouthpiece and plug that into the horn, it makes a sound. So the trombone can play lots of different pitches with the slide. I can change the pitch. And do all kinds of things like that. And that's basically just me blowing into this mouthpiece and buzzing my lips, going with my lips with the trombone. Brass instruments can play any type of note we talked about before, not just like the percussion instruments that can't always play the really long notes. I can play half notes to 2 beats. I can play quarter notes for 1 beat. I can play eighth notes for half a beat. And I can also play whole notes for 1 whole 4-beat pattern. So there's lots of different things we can do with brass instruments and making all kinds of different sounds. The other brass instrument I'm going to show you guys real quick before we go is called the French horn. Sometimes we just call these the horn. And it's kind of like the trombone, as in I make the sound the same way. It has a mouthpiece that is smaller than the trombones. It's a smaller mouthpiece, plugs right in there. And I make a sound by buzzing my lips into the mouthpiece. Just like that. It has a bigger end to it. So they call this part of the horn the bell. And with a French horn, we do something funny with this. We take our hand and we put it inside of it. So it kind of makes the sound more mellow. I'm also doing something with my hands. Unlike the slide on the trombone, the French horn has these valves, and I can press them to make different pitches and make different sounds. So a lot of different things we can do with the French horn. So 2 different types of brass instruments. They're called brass because that's the material that they're made out of. This is a brass metal. And there's a lot of different brass instruments we can play. And just like with the rhythms we used before, brass instruments can do it all. They can play whole notes, half notes, eighth notes, quarter notes, and even some faster or slower notes than those. Brass instruments are super cool, and I hope next week we can talk about a few more different types of brass instruments. Guys, I hope that you have a great week. I'm so glad that we can spend a few moments making some music together, and I cannot wait to see you all very soon. I hope you enjoyed your Sunday school and music this week. Take care, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Oh, I wonder how you made it all so good. With a promise, did what you said you